You're listening to Brandon Tierney on 1050 ESPN New York.
It called the victory for Maryland last night. I thought there was I thought Duke was playing great basketball. I thought there was no way that Vasquez and Milborn and company were going to let that game get out of their hands.
Interesting. I want to talk about that game more, but I wanted to ask you now. You're let me see. You're 8 years younger than I am, and this was a very, very poignant moment in my life. Do you remember the day that Hank Gathers died?
Yes.
How old were you at that point?
I was very young. I don't know exact age.
Because I was. I tell you, I was 90, right?
90,
today's the 20th anniversary.
90, yes.
So I was 7.
9.
I was 16.
I was 9.
You were 9.
Yes.
So you were old enough to. Did you understand? Did you know how good he was?
I didn't understand how great he was until I got older. But obviously, it was a huge day because my father was a baseball fan and my grandfather was a pitcher as well. So my father talked a lot about it.
You know, I think if he played on the East Coast, that's the thing about Hank Gathers. And I was doing some research this morning, and he dropped 48 points when he played LSU.
Yeah.
When Shaq was still there and Stanley Roberts, another pretty good big man at the time, he scored 48. And the knock on Gathers, who played with Bo Kimball as well, as you know, was that they played in this up and down system, and you never really knew how good he was. But that's one of the unknowns of the NBA. I think we all know that Bias would have been great, but I think there's still a differing opinion on whether or not Hank Gathers would have been a really good NBA player. Would have been interesting.
My grandfather played a lot of different sports. He played baseball, basketball, very athletic, and my father, as much as he loved basketball, wasn't that great at it. We ran track and baseball, but just a huge sports family. I remember him saying that, you got to take this life. You can't take it for granted because anything can happen at any given time. And it's funny how my life happened to work out because, you get caught up into that world. And if you're not lucky or if something, God forbid, happens, it can be taken away from you like that.
Jay, I never asked you this. I've had you on the show probably now about 4 or 5 times, right? Been on with me a couple of times here.
Becoming a regular? Absolutely.
No, you know the invite. The door's always open for you, man. I love your knowledge, and I like the freshness. You're a young guy, and I like having you on. But I've never gone here, and I want to do it today because I wanted to establish a trust. But and I think today's a good day to do it. When you had your crash, can you take us through that day? Because everybody knows how great you were and what you do now. But I've never even asked you when you actually crashed. Well, the motorcycle. What was that day like for you?
What's funny about that is that riding bikes. It was something that everybody kind of in the NBA did at that juncture. I remember seeing Kobe. I remember ESPN having footage of Kobe back in the day. Driving up to Lakers games on his bike.
Wow.
All the guys rode. It was just one of the things that guys did. And for me, I think the most difficult thing about playing the NBA, you have so much free time. And I was 21. As much as I wanted to do other things and be involved in my business, I was still a kid. So I was on my bike that day about 2 blocks away from my home and was riding, and I had the bike in 3rd gear. And
was it wet outside or no?
No, it wasn't wet. It was a beautiful day. Had a new exhaust that was on, so I was rolling to a stop sign, and I clicked it down to neutral, and the bike revved twice because it was in neutral, revved perfectly. On the 3rd rev, in the middle of the rev, that I heard it go click, click, so meaning that the gear actually shifted into 2nd. I wish my reaction would have been to let go of the bike, but my initial reaction was to grab onto it to try to gain control. So I was popping a wheelie. So all of a sudden, I'm out of control, and I was going from going around 25, 30 miles an hour to going around 55, 60.
On a wheelie?
On a wheelie,
oh,
yes.
Boy.
It popped up that fast.
Okay.
I had a Yamaha R1, so it was, it was a crotch rocket. It was going. I grabbed onto it. So I'm running the stop sign now. As I'm running the stop sign, there was a truck coming from the right to left. I have to speed up not to hit the truck. That's my only focus. So I have to throttle it a little bit more, not to get hit by the truck. Next thing I know, by the time I turn around and look back, I try to turn at the last second by smashing into a utility pole. And I smashed the whole left side of my body into a utility pole. And the crazy thing is, if you ever had a drink spilled on you, it's I felt that from the waist down. But I kept touching my legs, my knees, my pelvis area, and didn't see any blood. Okay. So I knew there was a very serious problem. But the crazy thing about all that,
you never lost consciousness?
No, I was awake the entire time. because I was in such a shock, obviously, that it was happening. And the crazy thing, I wasn't really worried about my life. I really wasn't worried about if I was going to keep my legs at that certain time. The only thing I kept yelling out is that I threw it all away.
You were yelling that in the street?
I was screaming it so loud. That was the only thing on my mind. Because here I was at the age of 21 years old. You know, you dream about getting to a city like Chicago. And as much as the media kind of killed me for it, I looked up to MJ, like being a competitive spirit kind of guy, and he really standing up to not letting the losing habits kind of maintain. I was all about that, and I kind of felt like the last 15 games I was making great segue, and I was working out, and I was getting ready to make that turn, just into understanding how the NBA really works on and off the court. And yeah, man, I was livid, just screaming out, I threw it all away. I threw it all away.
Now, I asked you that. I remember I was supposed to go to college the next day, and I got in a car accident at 108 miles an hour. I wasn't driving.
Wow.
And so I ask you that. Trust me, I know when that car's flipping, you don't know if you're dead. You don't know if you, God forbid, you're going to be paralyzed. You just don't know what's going on. You just hope for the mercy of God that at some point it stops and you're alive.
You know what, too? Like, BT, like I remember I called my mother. In the
and that's
ambulance.
the worst call. But there's not a worse call to make in the world than that call.
I made it. I was still conscious enough to make the phone call. That's what kind of kills me.
You grabbed yourself while you were laying on the ground?
While I was in the ambulance, wow. I had my cell, and I called my mother and I said, I think you should come out to Chicago. I've been in an accident, but I think I'm going to be okay. Next thing I know, I pass out, and I have pins in my pelvis. I have pins in my knee. And they're telling me that, their chances of me walking again are slim to none.
All right, Chad. I hope you don't mind that we went there.
No, no worries at all. I'm fine with it. I'm finally fine with it. A lot of years removed.
Attaboy. And I hope the audience, as we come back and we'll talk college basketball coming up, I hope everybody who, maybe some of the younger fans out there who know your name but don't realize how great you were, how truly gifted you were, maybe some fans have a greater appreciation right now for Jay Will and where you were. So that's I wanted to go there and I'm happy that you were cool with that. So we'll come back. We'll talk some hoops. We'll talk about the Duke-Maryland game from last night. We'll talk about some teams on the bubble. We'll talk about the Big East local stories and some of the surprise teams right now as we get ready for the best time of the year. Jay Will in studio. Tierney up until noon. 1050 ESPN New York.
1050 ESPN New York.
All right, little college hoops front and center. 12 minutes after 11 Thursday morning here at 1050. Brandon Tierney Show. Hanging out in studio, Jay Will. Jay Williams.
Is that my come-in song? The LL Cool J?
We're not going to give you. What do you want, Def Leppard?
No.
We got to make it somewhat fit the subject matter, Well, you don't like LL Cool J?
No, it comes on. I start licking my lips. I don't know what else to do.
He does that all the time. He
killing
does
me.
That too much. What was A. Winthorpe? What was Stephen A? We used to have not Heavy D. Yeah, I guess it was Heavy D. Stephen A. said years ago that Heavy D was one of the 10 best rappers of all time. I'm like, what, are you kidding me? Oh, come on now.
I'm not going to say he was good.
Yeah, I'm not saying he wasn't good.
Rappers of all time.
No. Okay, let's get that out of the way. Hey, before we get into the stuff with the actual basketball stuff, Coach K. I want to ask you there, young Jay Williams. A couple of weeks ago, we heard Rick Pitino rumors maybe to the Nets. Then we heard Coach K, his name emerged. And at some point, if he's going to take the plunge, he's going to have to take it pretty soon. Do you think he's ever going to coach in the NBA?
No.
Why not?
Here's the thing. I think Coach is great when he has a superior talent that believes in him. And I don't care what anybody says about the NBA. Unless you're a coach who's been there for 15, 20 years like a Phil Jackson. Phil Jackson has Kobe. If Coach K did not leave Duke for the Lakers, a chance to coach Kobe, I don't think he's going to leave for the Nets. Not anything to knock the Nets, but the one thing I know that he really appreciates is on the Dream Team, he had guys like LeBron and Kobe who were they wanted to win. They had that will, that desire, that passion. And I think at Duke, he's able to really dictate that atmosphere, that energy. I think the difficult thing about NBA is he can be the coach of the Nets, and if he gets a couple guys who don't believe in him, who are franchise players, I think that's where you fall into difficulties.
See, but here's why. I mean, you know him. I don't know him, but here's why I think, and taking Coach K out of it for a second, but a highly successful college coach who was thinking about making the jump, they all have ego, all right?
Oh, yeah.
So Now I'm going to put myself in Coach K's shoes again. I'm going to say a couple of years ago when the Lakers come knocking, well, Lakers, Jerry West, Wilt Chamberlain, Magic, Worthy. What can I really do to distinguish myself there? They have everything already that's made. They've got championships. But if I go to the Nets, nobody expects me to win. We haven't, we're going to have 9 wins this year. The ego could take over, and I could become even bigger than I am because I could take something that's dormant and I can make it rise from the dead. You don't think there's any truth behind that?
No, he's one of the most competitive people I've ever met. I mean, the guy literally watches film as soon as the game is over all night long until practice the next day.
Still?
Oh, yeah, to this day. I mean, he's dedicated. When I was hurt, I spent a year and a half down in Durham working out and would watch tape with those guys every single night after the game was over. I just don't think that he would leave Duke, a place that he's built. Coach K Court, he's been there for 20-plus years. He's going to be in the Hall of Fame. He has an unbelievable home down there, Krzyzewskiville. His 3 daughters are all down there, Debbie, Jamie. It's just that's the stadium he built. That's home. I just don't ever see him leaving.
And he's not nearly the choir boy. Now, people who've been around him know that he is a foul-mouthed. I mean, he gets after it. He explodes. But if you don't know Coach K, look at that nice. His hair's parted. He looks so passive. He's a nut.
Hey,
he's a nut.
The thing I can say about Coach is that on a daily basis, he majored in psychology. He will challenge you. If it's in practice, I remember after I had a bad game against Maryland, he didn't talk to me for 3 days at practice. And as a kid, when you're looking for a coach to incentivize you and give you positive feedback,
sure,
when he doesn't talk to you, that can mess you up mentally. If you're not in the right frame of mind, that can hurt your style of play. It's all about what kind of person, how strong are you mentally to handle that kind of stuff.
You know what? That's Jay Williams, former Duke star in studio, Brandon Tierney show. Jay, what I never understood, because I remember one of the first books I read, A Season on the Brink, Bobby Knight. Read that, I was believe in 6th grade. I did a book report on it. And I remember when Bobby would kick players out of practice. And that's an old school approach, and that coaches still do it now. What's the benefit to that? If I'm a player and I'm having a bad day of practice and I get kicked out of practice, I think I'd rather get kicked out of practice than run 50,000 suicides. I'm like, all right, I'll go back to my dorm. I'll go hang out with my girl. I'll take a shower. I'm out of here. What's the penalty for getting kicked out of practice?
Well, see, I think sometimes the penalty, I know what Coach K was, that he might kick you out of practice and then the rest of the team was going to run suicides for the entire practice.
Oh, so your boys get all
So that's the penalty right there within itself, because you get flack from your teammates on a daily basis about you kind of, got to bring the pain.
Okay, let's get to some of the storylines here and some of the major teams right now. We all know who are the 3 right now, who the 3 1 seeds are. Who's the 4th? Do you go Duke? Do you go Kansas State, and why?
I think I go Kansas State right now.
You do?
They're coming off that loss to Kansas. They're right there. I think if Kansas State maybe goes out of the tourney early, as far as a conference tournament, and Duke wins the tournament, they can get number 1 seed.
By the way, the ACC, I'll tell you, when Carolina's not really good, the ACC becomes boring to me, man.
Ask you this question: who's the 3rd best team in the ACC right now? You have Maryland, Duke at top.
I saw you throw this on your Twitter account this morning.
Who is it?
Go ahead.
I'm asking you. You go Clemson. You go FSU.
Nah, I don't like FSU that much.
You don't?
No.
I think FSU's pretty good. They had that big win over Wake.
What do you think of Vodtech?
I think Vodtech is good when they're at home. I think they struggle on the road. I don't see them having any big-time victories on the road.
Do you think Seth Greenberg can leave this year and maybe sprout up somewhere in the East Coast, if you know what I'm getting at this year? You know what I mean?
It's a possibility.
You do think that's a possibility?
I think if the opportunity opens itself up, why not?
And do you think that Norm Roberts will be back at St. John's? Let's get into that for a second here.
You know what?
What do you think?
Norm is my guy.
I love him.
They've been patient. He's been grinding, and it's so hard to recruit kids to stay at home. It's something about kids want to get out of New York City. I mean, to lose guys like Lance Stevenson. I mean, that's a kid that, he on TV, on .com, born ready. He should be here in New York. Unfortunately, I don't know if Norm's going to be around.
A little overrated by. Can we say that about Lance Stevenson? Come on. All the hype. I don't believe the results have matched the hype. I mean, this kid was like Kenny Anderson, Stephon Marbury. I've watched him play at least 8 times this year. I got to tell you, Jay, I don't want to say I'm not impressed with Lance because he can pass and he does some things well. Lance Stevenson is not as good as I thought he would be.
I agree with you. I mean, he's going through his growing spurts, but don't we do that all the time here in New York City? Like a kid's coming out of New York, Sebastian Telfair, we're saying he's going to be the best and he's going to be...
Yeah, but he jumped to the NBA. If he would have gone to Louisville where he signed, I'm pretty sure Sebastian would have had a nice 1 or 2 year career for Rick.
No, I agree with you.
Lance, come on.
I think it's the thing that's difficult for any kid coming out of high school going to the college level is that it's not like the pros. I think in a one-on-one situation, I think Lance would be great. But in college, when you have 3-4 guys waiting in the paint for your every move, it makes it more difficult and challenging to score.
You know what I think is going to be interesting, and I'm going to put you in the committee room right now. It's Jason Williams, Jay Williams, former Duke star, is in studio with me, Brandon Tierney Show. Let's say, we know Hummel's not coming back for Purdue. What's the line of thinking behind the committee as they seed these teams? Say if they play well the rest of the way and maybe even make a nice run in the conference tourney, but we know Hummel's not coming back. How does that affect where Purdue, who's resided in the top 10 for a long time, how does that affect where they're placed once the NCAA tournament starts?
Well, I think they'll take that into fact for it. Just he did so many things for that team. He's a leader on and off the court. But still, at the end of the day, you're going to give them the eye test, which I still think they pass. I don't know what
they're still pretty
level.
good.
They're still a really good team.
One-man show.
Yeah, E'Twaun Moore, Juwan Johnson's been playing great. Chris Kramer. I think it all depends on how they finish in the tourney. But here's the thing. This field is so open, BT. We talked about it so many different times. I can't believe we're still having a conversation about Mississippi State being in the tourney. I don't think any other year they would be. Their only best wins winning over Ole Miss, Tennessee, and that's really it. So I think this is a wide open field for anybody to get in there and anybody to have a chance.
All right, coming up next, Jay's going to hang in studio with us for another segment. We'll get into some of the Big East stories. Has Notre Dame they certainly have bolstered their resume. Have they done enough maybe to get in if they can have a little success at the Big East tournament coming up next week? What about UConn? I would imagine on many levels that bubble's already burst. What do they have to do to maybe go on a run and maybe get a second look from the committee? And also, and I can't wait to hear this from Jay, I'm going to have him identify his top 3 NBA players. So when you get ready to watch the conference tourneys and the actual NCAA tournament, the 3 players that will be playing that will be the biggest stars in the NBA, I'll get them from Jay, who's in studio. And then at 11:40, we'll do some hockey. Sid the Kid is in as the Rangers take on Crosby. So we still have a lot to do. Jason Williams is in studio, college basketball front and center. Back with Jay in a moment. Right now, SportsCenter Ron Flatter coming at you.
You're listening to Brandon Tierney on 1050 ESPN New York.
All right, just a reminder, you got Sid the Kid in town, so Rangers and Pens coming up tonight at 7, pregame at 6:30. We'll talk to Kenny Albert coming up in 13 minutes from now. That is at 11:40-ish. Also, coming up soon, it's Lunch with a Legend, former Georgetown coach John Thompson. As we get into this again, it's something we do periodically here at 1050. It's great stuff. We've had a lot of different big names, whether it's Don Shula or Andy North for golf, Darrow. We've had David Cohn. We've had all sorts of big names. So this is March 10th at the New York Athletic Club. More details, 1050ESPN.com. And that's the former coach of the Hoyas, John Thompson. And in studio today is Jay Williams, former Dookie, second overall pick back in 2002. And before I even get into some of the other things I want to throw at you, if you didn't play for Coach K, any coach in the history of college basketball, who would you have enjoyed playing for?
I could pick any coach in the history.
Doesn't matter.
I'm going to go with John Wooden. How could you go against him?
That's too easy. Give me another one. Would you want Bobby Knight? Would you have been able to mesh with Bobby Knight?
I don't think so. I got too much of a temper. I don't know if that would have worked.
He may have respected that, though. I probably would have tried to control it instead.
No, I would have listened. But Bobby, I hear stories from Isaiah. Bobby was a tough one. You know what? A guy I really wanted to play for coming out was Roy Williams at Kansas. I thought Roy was a great guy, and after getting to know him even more and more, I think it's difficult to see him going through the struggles at UNC because you never see UNC that down. But I tell you,
they are down.
They're down.
Oh boy, oof.
But congrats to them. They got their 2000th win. They finally got it, which was great. And I tell you, he's a great recruiter and he's a great coach.
Yeah, they'll be back. It's just a matter of time. There's no question. All right, the 3 players that are getting ready to lace them up for the conference tournaments and the eventual NCAA tournament, the 3 players who will translate their skills now into the NBA. Give us and not John Webb, but get the obvious names. Give us.
Well, I got to give you. Come on, man. Did you see that left-handed dunk John Wall had last night against Travis Leslie of Georgia?
Oh, Georgia.
Oh, my goodness.
It was ridiculous.
And I'll tell you right now, Travis Leslie, he's a sleeper. He's around 6'4", 6'5", has a great stroke, can shoot the ball from outside, and one of the most athletic guys in college basketball. Listen, Evan Turner, 6'8".
I like him.
I mean, he handles the ball like a point guard, BT. He's unbelievable with the ball, can shoot, still has to work on his long-range game. And I want to see if you know this one. There's a young man out of Marshall who is going to be a complete star, in my opinion.
Oh, the big 7-footer.
You know who I'm talking about?
What's his name? Hold on. The 7-footer. I'm forgetting his name right now.
How about Hassan?
Hassan White.
There you go.
Hassan White.
Hassan Whiteside.
Whiteside.
Yes.
I mean,
Yes.
I don't get to see Marshall play that much.
Well, I mean, I didn't get a chance to see him play a lot either until I started seeing this kid.
Good?
Until I started seeing this kid. I mean, 7 foot, can block shots, having around 5 blocks a game.
It worries me, though. I mean, come on. What the conference... How do you really gauge how? Listen, big men are tricky.
That's true.
They're really tricky. And I'll give you a good example. I thought Sheldon Williams would be a good pro because he was not that he's a prototypical center, but as a big, reined elbows and strong and a good he's terrible in the NBA. So why should I get excited about a kid who plays at a mid-major who's really skinny and tall?
I don't know if Sheldon's terrible. I mean, he signed a pretty good deal with Boston.
Oh, come on, man.
Here's the thing. Like, if you're not extremely athletic...
That's like saying Sean May's good. I mean, if you went to Carolina, you'd be telling me Sean May was good. Stop defending your boys. Keep going. Come on. Sheldon Williams, the 5th overall pick, he's nothing.
He's struggling. But, hey, listen, here's the thing. It's like if you don't have the athleticism to finish over the top of the trees, that's why I try to tell people all the time. You could be a strong little post player, but if you don't have the length to finish over guys, you're going to struggle in the NBA. But this kid, Hassan Whiteside, has the length.
All right, so that's one. So you got Hassan Whiteside. And by the way, okay, I just pulled up his scouting report compared to David Robinson.
Now,
so you're going to have
big shoes to fill.
Well,
that's pretty big shoes to fill right there.
And that's bigger pipes to fill. There's no way this kid's going to fill out like David. David Robinson was yoked.
Yeah, he was stacked.
Now, he wasn't very physical. He'd rather go around you than over you.
He won championships.
Oh, no question.
Tim Duncan.
But he needed Duncan.
Yeah. How about this? What do you think about Sharon Collins as a pro?
Where am I drafting?
Exactly. Well, here's the thing. It's about all these kids, and that's about everybody out there. If you get drafted to the wrong situation, you can be hurt. I mean, you can't. And my first year, I played in the triangle. People are like, how come he's only averaging 10 points? Well, I would pass the ball to Jalen Rose, and I would run to the corner and stand there until the end of the possession. That's how difficult it is. So it all depends if you get drafted into the right situation.
What did you think of that Nova-Syracuse game the other night? 34,000 fans at the Carrier Dome Saturday night. Largest on-campus game, crowd for regular season game. First, the atmosphere, and then what you actually saw from Syracuse.
I thought the atmosphere was unbelievable. Just seeing those guys on game day having a difficult time even speaking.
Yeah, you couldn't even hear it. You're right. If you're a recruit and you're at that game, how do you not sign?
I'm done. I'm signing. Jim Boeheim, I'm in. Yeah. What do I need to do? And I think Nova, I think it's the same thing that I said at the beginning of the year that they were going to struggle with, is that, Dante Cunningham did so much for that team last year on the blocks, man. He brought such toughness and rebounding. And I'm not saying Isaiah Armwood and Antonio Pina, they can't get that stuff done. But Antonio,
I am.
Pina does.
No, I'm saying that. I
don't think they can get done for a national championship.
Jay, I'm not sold on Nova. And I was riding them, for a long time early on. The more I see them in person, they are very vulnerable up front. I think that's a good point. Pena, who played locally here at Lincoln for a little bit, by the way, I'm not saying he's not a good player, but he's not a difference maker at all.
He's a guy who gets you rebounds and put back points, and they don't have a low post scorer, somebody with legit low post presence.
Yep.
They don't. And I think that's the one thing that Syracuse has that differentiates them from every other team in the Big East.
They're
huge.
Are they more talented than Kansas and Kentucky? Give me the in order of talent, not about teamwork,
talent.
Just talent.
The
three most talented teams. Go.
I would go Kansas. I would say Kentucky.
Okay. Syracuse has to be in front of Kansas.
I would say Syracuse and Kansas.
Yeah, and you give Kentucky with 3 first-round picks.
Exactly. I mean, Patrick Patterson, Marcus Cousins, John Wall.
I know.
I mean, Bledsoe. Have you seen Bledsoe has a 43-inch vertical?
Yeah, I didn't know it was 43.
Yeah, it's sick.
What was yours?
40.
By the way, you were telling me a story off the air. My audience will enjoy this. When you would try to guard Jay Will, the other Jay Will.
Yes.
And how he just
it was embarrassing.
It
was embarrassing. He might have been, well, first of all, I was stoked to play against the guy because you see all the videos he's doing and everything he did at Florida. So we're playing him. He's playing for Sacramento, and they come down. They call this open set, right? So, I'm giving the sign to my coach to run an open. So I'm like, guys, sag in, help. Of course, in the NBA, nobody helps. If you're going to be by yourself, you're an island. This dude crossed me over so bad. And the next about 14 to 15 possessions, they ran the same play, and I could not stop him until eventually I just said, screw it, I'm going to foul out. I fouled out. I just fouled him hard every time. I couldn't handle it.
And you were trying to tell me, it really explained just how fast he was and deceptive.
Well, the thing that a lot of kids in college level don't get is that once you get to the pros, if you have the ability to change speeds, like if you could be the fastest guy in the world, but if you can slow your speed down to 30, Sam Cassell does it all the time, and then raise up, then you can't guard somebody because you have no idea what speed they're going to play at. So they throw you off with their rhythm.
Ray Allen seems to do that from a different, right?
All the time. Catch and shoot. Sometimes they give you a really slow head fake.
Yeah.
Yeah, he I tell you, this guy's a veteran. He understands how to play the game.
And there's something to be said because, the 30 for 30 film with Reggie Miller, which, by the way, did you see that?
Yes.
It was great, wasn't it?
It was unbelievable.
But that's the difference between Reggie, who can get a shot off like that, coming off a curl, and just boom, quick trigger, and a guy who really needs to, like Danilo Gallinari right now,
needs
who
to really
set himself and get a good look before he could hit it.
I got a college basketball question for you. UConn, in or out?
Oh, they're out.
They're out? Yeah,
they're right now, they're absolutely
Thank
out.
goodness you said that.
Oh, absolutely.
If you said they're in.
No.
Hey, here's the thing. They passed the eye test, though, BT. They passed the eye test.
Wait a second. Do you think that I know that little about that I would say that they're in?
I just wanted to ask you.
If you're going to ask me something tougher than that.
Notre Dame in?
Right now, Notre Dame's playing their way in. Yeah.
I think they're in.
I would probably agree. Now, they can't bomb. They can't bomb in the conference tourney.
Exactly.
You win one, Irish are going.
Better with Luke Herringody or without?
They're playing better without him. Abramitis, Jackson had a great game.
I got a chance to talk to Mike Bray when they lost his seat in Hall, which was a difficult loss, and he said Torrey Jackson is the leader of that team. He's exquisite, man, and he just keeps his head down, doesn't say anything, he just plays hard.
He's up from the Michigan area, Saginaw.
Yes, he is.
He's a good player. I'm not going to say they're better without Herringody. That's too much disrespect to a guy who's had a great college career. That's I can't do that.
I just think they rely upon him to do way too much. Everybody watches Luke Herringody, and it needs to be a team effort.
Jay, always good seeing you.
Well, wait, BT, before I go, I got to tell you something. I got to invite you to my event on April 27th because you said I never invite you to anything.
You never invite me.
So you know what? I'm inviting you now. I'm putting you on the mark. Yeah. We need funding. Check us out. www.jwillrisingstars.org.
J-Will or J-Wills?
J-Will.
jwillrisingstars.org.
Okay. And we're having an event at the NIAC on April 27th. You will be at a table with me.
Outstanding.
With the boy. I think Justin Tuck's going to come through.
Nice.
Strahan's going to come through. Chris Duhon, a guy I heard you love, is going to come through. I'm going to sit him right next to you.
Duhon, I can pick his brain out. So what happened to him? Hey, Duhon, what happened this year, buddy?
I'll
talk
to him.
Boy. That's your boy. Your boy's just about out of town, though. You know that, right?
Be nice.
That'll be nice. I appreciate that, Jay. I'm there. It's for charity, obviously,
it is.
right?
It's for my charity, so please come check it out.
That's jwillrisingstar.org.
Yes, sir.
Outstanding, brother.
Thanks, brother. I appreciate it.
You got it. Great having you in the studio. We'll wrap again soon. Maybe next week we'll get you back in.
I love it.
Or certainly get you back up on the phone.
I would love it.
All right, Jay. Good work, man. Keep it up.
Thanks.